A ceasefire born in haste rarely brings lasting peace. More often it pauses the noise, only for the conflict to return louder, sharper, and more complicated. And nowhere is this more true than the volatile landscape of the Middle East. So when the United States and Iran stepped back from what President Trump dramatically described as the end of the civilization, the world exhaled. There was relief, there was celebration, there was hope. But there was also something else, a silence that spoke volumes. Israel, one of the central players in this conflict, remained conspicuously quiet. The same silence echoed across key Gulf nations, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, and Oman. And that raises a critical question. Was everyone really on board with this ceasefire? We at globalheadwinds.com feel that there are at least 6 major reasons why this ceasefire may not even last 2 weeks. Reason 1. A fragile mediation. The United States and Iran didn't negotiate directly. The intermediary was Pakistan. But that choice is already raising eyebrows. As the days pass, Pakistan's role is increasingly being questioned. Even Vice President Vance, who led the negotiations, reportedly felt that different versions of the ceasefire terms were being conveyed to each side. And at the heart of the disagreement lies a critical issue. Israel believes the ceasefire applies only to Iran and specifically to the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. But Iran insists that the deal includes a broader condition: a complete halt to US and Israeli military actions, not just in Iran, but also in Lebanon, particularly against the Hezbollah. That's not a minor gap, that's fundamental disconnect. Reason 2, the trust deficit. The choice of Pakistan as a mediator may have worked for Washington, but not for Israel. From Israel's perspective, Pakistan is not a neutral party. It is viewed as hostile, much like Iran itself. So when your mediator is not trusted by one of the key stakeholders, the foundation of the agreement is already shaky. Reason 3. Gulf nations are divided. The Gulf countries find themselves in a dilemma. On one hand, a ceasefire means stability. It allows oil to flow again through the Strait of Hormuz, a lifeline for the global economy. But on the other hand, Iran has already inflicted significant damage on their infrastructure. And this ceasefire demands no accountability. In fact, sections of the establishment within these countries believe the war should have continued, that Iran should have paid a heavier price. That internal divide makes a long-term consensus unlikely. Reason 4. Iran emerges stronger. Ironically, the ceasefire may have strengthened Iran. The primary objective of the US and Israel was to dismantle Iran's nuclear ambitions. But that hasn't happened. Iran still retains its stockpile, around 440 kilograms of enriched uranium. So the war pauses without achieving its core goal. Instead, the biggest immediate win appears to be the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, something President Trump openly welcomed. But strategically, the bigger question remains unresolved. Reason 5. The Strait of Hormuz tensions. Even the reopening of the strait comes with complications. Iran's decision to impose a toll on shipping passing through this strait has anchored not just the Gulf nations, but the entire international community. The move is widely seen as a violation of the UN Conventions on Law of the Sea. More importantly, it signals something deeper. The situation is far from stable. Reason 6. Israel's unfinished war. And finally, we come to Israel. Despite the ceasefire, Israel's strikes in Lebanon continue. There are even concerns about potential territorial ambitions. For Prime Minister Netanyahu, the conflict isn't just geopolitical, it's deeply political. His government depends on support from the ultra-right factions whose object is clear: the complete dismantling of the Iran regime. Any compromise risks collapsing his political coalition, which means de-escalation is not just difficult, it may be politically impossible. So what we are seeing is not peace, it's a pause filled with mistrust, competing agendas, and unresolved objectives. And when the ceasefire rests on such fragile ground, the real question isn't whether it will hold, it is how soon it will break.